Pickles, but not pickles. Asparagus pickles, but they're not pickles. Fermented pickles. No, fermented asparagus pickles. Crunchy, delightful, wonderful, refreshing asparagus spears. Hey everybody, welcome to the Hamakua Homestead. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany, and today we are making something that the recipe book calls asparagus pickles. But they are fermented, not pickled in vinegar like one might expect. This recipe should make about 1 quart jar of your fermented asparagus pickles. Delicious. Crunchy. This recipe is super easy. You're gonna start off with getting your asparagus ready. Get your fresh and crispy, crunchy asparagus ready to go by just simply snapping the woody ends off. I do find that when you snap the ends off like this, it is a lot better because it's gonna naturally snap in the right place, leaving the woody, yucky pieces on one side and the fresh, crispy, nice tips on the other. You might need to trim off some of the bottoms because they might not fit into your jar. You want to make sure that it's 5 inches or a little less to fit in a quart jar. If you're doing this in pint-sized jars, you'll want to cut them down to about 3.5 to 3 3/4 inch pieces. Now you're going to take 3 to 4 garlic cloves. You're going to smash them with the side of your knife. And don't cut them up, but just smash them and set those aside as well. Now that those things are done, take 1 teaspoon black peppercorns, 1/2 teaspoon chili pepper flakes. Dang, I forgot the bay leaf. Oops. 1 bay leaf and 3 to 4 dried chilies. Cayenne peppers, any kind of peppers that tickles your fancy, but I couldn't find any dried peppers at the store, so I improvised. I just used 4 Hawaiian chili peppers straight from the bush in my yard. Now you can put your asparagus spears in your jar. I want to encourage you to put them in with the bottom side down and the tips up, because those tips are really fragile. You don't want them all break off and all the good bits be at the bottom of the jar. You want them to stay as whole as possible. But, some are probably gonna break, but it's okay. But, try to be careful. Wedge your garlic in there while you're at it. It doesn't have to be in any particular kind of way, just shove it in there where you can. And make sure that your asparagus is shoved in there kind of tight, because it's going to keep them down under the brine so that you don't have to put a weight on top of those delicate asparagus tips. Once it's full, put 1 to 2 grape leaves on top. The grape leaves are going to help them remain crispy and crunchy after their fermenting, pickling process. Now you can add your brine. This brine that I'm using is off of a different page in the same Fermenting Vegetables book. This one calls for a basic brine, which is 1/2 cup of salt for each 1 gallon of water. I mixed this ahead of time, and we have plenty, of course, for later. We can do another recipe, and we can just keep it in the fridge for a week. We can top off this jar if I lose too much liquid throughout the process. Pop your lid on top and set it aside. You might want to put something underneath it, like a dish, to catch any excess liquid that might come out as it is starting its bubbling process. Now you want to keep this ferment in a cool, dark place, out of direct sunlight, but not in such a dark place tucked away in a corner to where you're gonna forget about it, because then you might have a real mess on your hands. During the first few days, you might not see too much action as far as bubbling and stuff goes, but you're gonna want to burp it, because there's going to be gases that are building up inside of your jar, and you do not want your lid or your jar to just explode. That would be very bad for not just your ferment, but for your kitchen counters and probably your floor as well. This is a 5 to 8 day ferment, so it's not going to take too long before you get to taste the fruits of your labor. This ferment is going to be ready when the asparagus spears are an olive green color and the water is kind of cloudy. You're going to want to taste it to see if it's exactly what you want, and if it's not, let it go another day and try it again. Just gonna find out what preferences you have, and it's also going to depend on your climate. It's going to depend on if it's been raining a lot, if you live in Arizona, or if you live in a rainforest. Everything's going to make a difference. So you just need to check it out, try it for yourself, and see what you think. As long as there's no visible mold or anything pink or black growing in there, you should be just fine. You might see some white scuzzy scum on the top. Don't be too alarmed. It's probably just comm yeast. Comm yeast is completely harmless. If you stir it into your brine, you might end up with a little bit more of a bitter taste to your ferment. You can scoop it right off or stir it in, whatever. Once they are to your liking, you're gonna just pop them in the fridge and just snack on them as you see fit. Your asparagus might come to be a little bit soft, but they shouldn't be mushy. You can keep this in your refrigerator under the right conditions for up to a year. A year! From here on out, just make sure that they are submerged under that brine, and we'll see you back here for a taste test. We started our asparagus on the 14th. Today is the 21st. It's looking exactly like the recipe book said that it would. It's kind of cloudy, and it's more of like an olive green color rather than a bright, vibrant green. So we're gonna give it a try. I believe that the book said this is a 5 to 8 day ferment, so we're right at day 7. I think we'll be all right. It looks like all of the tips are pretty well intact, even being underneath the grape leaf. It's looking pretty nice. It's bubbly, but it's not terribly bubbly. Gotta wait for this coffee pot to finish. Okay, I think it's done. So when you're testing out ferments, you want to make sure that you're not dipping your fingers in there and that you're always getting a clean utensil, because you don't want bacteria from your hands or from your mouth or anywhere else to get inside your jar, because then you're introducing bad bacteria into your environment full of good bacteria. Looks kind of soft. Not soft, not too soft. It's sour, it's tart. Coffee's done. It is not too soft. That was one of the main things that I was concerned about, but that's what the grape leaf is good for. It's always that first bite of something fermented or sour that really gets you. The second piece is not so shocking. That's pretty good. I could definitely see myself snacking on these. That's pretty good. I like that. I like that a lot. They will be softened but not mushy and have a pickly but not vinegary flavor. I would say that that's accurate. It says to go ahead. It says to store it in the refrigerator with the lid on tight and make sure that it is covered with brine. We can add some of the brine from last week that we had pre-mixed with the salt, and just to make sure that everything stays submerged. The same way that you do with pickles from the store. They're always covered in brine. You have to fish your fingers in there to get those pickles out. Same thing with the brine level. You want to make sure that they're covered. This recipe is going to stay good in your refrigerator for up to 12 months. and the flavor will intensify with time. I hope that this encourages you guys to get into some creative fermentation recipes. Your guts will thank you, and so will your taste buds. And that's gonna do it for today. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Hamakua Homestead. I'll see you again soon. Thank you so much.